Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Power Women in Insurance podcast. Today, we're talking tech. We've been talking tech a little bit here and there. We try to make sure that we bring you lots of different opportunities. And we are talking today with Elizabeth Culley, who is one of the co-founders here with her husband of her amazing business. And I want to make sure she gets the opportunity to tell you all about it because she's an previous agency owner. She has merged directly into that tech space. So before we get started, I want to make sure we get to know her a little bit more. So Elizabeth, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be here again.
Yes, well, I am super excited to have you. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in insurance and how you kind of developed that history that you have that then took you into your next extravaganza that we'll talk about here in just a second.
Sure. I mean, I think it's kind of funny because most people don't ever dream of growing up and being an insurance agent. I know some people do, but not most. That I kind of fell into insurance,
right?
And at a young age, and I was actually a personal trainer for 24 Hour Fitness, and I was training a farmer's insurance agent. And he's like, you have the personality. He's like, you should definitely be an insurance agent. And I was 22 at the time. And I told him, that sounds like an old, boring man job. Why would I want to be an insurance agent?
A lot of people feel that way. Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you're too. I mean, who doesn't feel that way in a lot of ways, unless you've had other exposure to it, right?
I don't even know if I had auto insurance at 22, to be honest. I was young. I didn't know anything about insurance. But anyways, they convinced me to give it a shot. So I did. And just from day one, I loved it. And I was like, okay, this is definitely for me. So I was a young agent. Learning just personal lines, working for a captive company. And then fast forward a few years, I ended up moving to Hawaii, to Maui. And I kind of got introduced to the world of the independent side because there were no farmers insurance companies out there. And the captives back then, this was early 2000, you had to have a lot of money to start a captive agency at the time. And again, I was in my early 20s. I had zero money. So I was like, well, maybe I'm not gonna do insurance for a while. But I found a job with an independent who worked a lot with commercial insurance out there, insuring large condo associations, high net worth clients. And so I got back into it. And so I worked in Hawaii for about 15 years doing insurance, and I loved it. And that's kind of how I became the queen bee of insurance, is what my signature title is, because I did all these different types of policies and accounts and dealing with high-end net worth clients, celebrity clients. Like, I kind of did everything all over the map. So, and I loved it, loved every minute of it. But I didn't own my agency at that time. I just was working for someone else. I was a producer. So I owned my own book, but not the agency. So fast forward a few years after that, I ended up moving back with my husband at the time, back to Michigan. So that's how I know.
Michigan, that's a big difference. I mean, that's not only just the demographic of the space between the two, but the temperature and everything. Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
It was rough, I'm not gonna lie. But I was actually in the same area as some other people from that we all know in the space. So like Linda Fisher, is a lot of you know her. So she's from the same town in the same area that I had lived in Michigan. So I knew her before she started her agency. Oh, nice. We were both independents working for other people back then. So it was funny. It was fun to reconnect. I love that about the insurance space, is you get to know different people from all over. So we were kind of in the same boat. And then that didn't end up working out. So I ended up moving back to Oregon, where I'm from originally. And I was wanting to get back into insurance, and I had a lot of clients in Hawaii that missed me, that wanted me to continue working with them. But I was living 3,000 miles away, and I could not find an independent agency that wanted to work in Hawaii because it's very difficult to get into that space. A lot of states like to do business locally. They want to keep it local. Hawaii is no different, especially because the culture out there is very different. But I lived there, for a long time. And so my husband, my new husband, on husband number 2, was suggested, why don't you just start your own agency? And I said, that is ideal, but that seems very difficult. And I don't even know how to start doing that.
Yeah.
So as you know, being on the independent side, you can do whatever you want to do. You can have whatever AMS you want. You can be virtual. You can have a storefront. So there's a lot of different options on how to run an agency. And so I kind of took what I loved and what I disliked about all the different agencies I had worked for to kind of create my own space and to create what I wanted. And then I had to figure out, okay, I'm living in Oregon. Now I'm going to go back and write in Hawaii plus Oregon and California. How am I going to be successful at this? And how am I going to have a team? How am I going to work in different hours in different states? So I created my independent agency from scratch. Didn't buy a book, didn't do anything, just 100% from scratch. And then I started slowly creating the tools and the systems that we needed in order to be successful.
I love it. I love it. So then that's a really good segue into the next phase of your life, right? Then a couple of years ago, I know that you found yourself in this technology space with your husband and so forth, and that grew GravityCerts. So we're excited now to be able to talk a little bit more about what that journey has really brought y'all into at this point. So tell us a little bit about GravityCerts and tell us a little bit about how that kind of came to be and what that is really doing out there in the insurance space right now.
Sure. So taking a spin off of what I was just talking about, I needed tools and systems for my agency. And as you all know, anybody that owns an agency knows that I always joke that it's the wild, wild west. Because
right.
You can literally do whatever you want to do and you don't have a lot of direction. So there's all these tools and programs and systems, and how do you know which one's going to be good for you, and how do you connect all these different facets of your company to work seamlessly together to make it easy for you, easy for your staff, and easy for your clients. So GravityCerts kind of evolved from my need and my dinner conversations with my husband complaining about how much I hated duplicate data entry, and how I was like, there's got to be an easier way to have all this data. How do I get all this data and move it from here to into an AMS, into a rater? How do I present it to clients? So it was just years of trying to come up with different solutions to fix problems that I had in my own agency. And so eventually, after 5 years of me owning my independent agency, he first created my website for me, and then we started adding quote forms to the website so that I could get data from, when you're working in a different state. I'm in Oregon, Hawaii's 3 hours time difference. I didn't want to be working till 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do I let clients get me the information that I need at a time that's convenient for them, and yet I can still have a life?
Yeah, that's important. And I think that's a really good question. I think insurance agents, struggle with that period just across the board. Like, how do I have a life and still take care of all of my blah, blah, blah that I have to do, right? But whenever you take into consideration a 3-hour time difference, it just kind of takes that challenge and makes it so much larger. So what did the technology end up doing for your agency?
Yeah, so we were a new agency in general, and we started popping up on our Google rankings immediately within the first year, which is pretty unheard of. So we were getting flooded with new business quote requests. The business grew so fast, and I honestly, I struggled to keep up. And so then I had to hire staff. And then that came, the next problem is, okay, so I hired a bunch of staff to help with all this new business because the website was doing great. And the way we were asking clients to get us the data, that was going exceptionally well. But then that still didn't solve, how do I get this data and push it into my AMS? So during 2020, actually right in the middle of COVID, I switched my AMS, I switched my CRM, and I switched my phone system.
Wow.
Which was a huge undertaking. And I didn't mean to do all three at one time, but I was just so frustrated and fed up with it. Nothing was talking to each other. And my staff was complaining that, well, why do we have to enter it here when we have to re-enter it in my AMS? And then now we have to enter it into Progressive and Travelers and all these different carriers, because Hawaii doesn't use raters. So there are some states that don't use raters, or they don't have the carrier capacity to use a rater.
Interesting.
So,
you know what? I did not know that. Interesting.
And so I don't know what other states out there that might not use raters. Maybe Alaska, maybe some other ones.
I'm sure there are others. Yeah, absolutely.
So for part of my reason for creating some of the solutions we had for GravityCerts was because I needed to fix these problems. And so, yeah, we just eventually started adding all these different solutions to our agency. And then at some point, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I told my husband, I was like, these solutions are not out there in this insurance space. And I said, I know other agencies could benefit from this as well, because they're all pulling their hair out and they're all frustrated with doing the same repetitive tasks and their staff is frustrated. Could we make this into a business, and could we help other agencies do the same thing? So we played around with the idea for a while, and then we started piecing it together, and we came up with our company, GravityCerts.
I love it. I love it. So this is just it's a marriage of lots of ways between you and your husband, as well as the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that what you're doing is you're taking a challenge in the insurance industry and you're creating a solution. And so therefore, tell me a little bit about how deep that goes, because we talked about from a website into the concept of your management system or maybe a rating system. But I think you guys have even taken it even further than that as well, because I know that unfortunately, whenever we go solve one problem, all of a sudden, like 3 others end up popping up, and all of a sudden 2, we think, oh, well, maybe we could do the same thing and be able to, streamline it in another way too. So I'm sure that opened up in your head a whole bunch of other ways to say, oh, maybe we could do this too, right? Like
Sure.
It became this ball that just is rolling down the hill, and just as kids kept grabbing everything with it, and it created a whole new life. How did that conversation come between y'all as an independent insurance agency owner and your husband to say, hey, let's do this?
Yeah, it was actually pretty interesting. We were, again, solving one problem, and then I was still complaining about, okay, but now that that's fixed, that's great. Now on to the next thing. And I think as a entrepreneur, maybe a serial entrepreneur, my brain is always going to the next thing, and I'm always constantly trying to make my life easier.
Yep.
I've had a lot of struggles, like a lot of people, and I want to run a business successfully and efficiently, and I hate doing the same thing over and over again. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so we solved a couple problems. Now we have more problems. And again, GravityCerts is not going to fix every single solution. No company, no tech company. There's always going to be things that we need to solve. But I feel like we continue to add new features, and that has helped solve additional problems. And so we don't just do websites, which I think a lot of people think that's primarily what we do. And of course, yes, we do websites, but they are tools for your agency. And we've briefly talked before that you can have a website and not really utilize it as a tool. All the features that we have with GravityCerts are based off your website. We do have a few products that you can buy a la carte. But again, like our quote proposals, for instance, how was I couldn't sit down and talk with my clients in my office like a lot of people do, because we were virtual. It was during COVID as well. And there was social distancing, and I was dealing with clients in different states. So how do I get them quotes without sending them a novel of an email explaining the coverages? Couldn't sit down in the office with them. A lot of people didn't want to have a phone call. Zoom was new. People still don't know how to use Zoom very well, or video conferencing. So I started recording videos, talking to the clients, just kind of like what we're doing on a podcast, but with video, explaining the coverages, sharing my screen with them so they could see the quotes, and then we would send that quote proposal off to the client. And that really was a game changer for me, because it was different than what a lot of agencies were doing. There's only a few companies that even offer quote proposals, and we looked into just purchasing someone else's proposal system that was already up there, but it didn't have the functionality and it didn't do what I wanted it to do. So my husband just said, well, I think I can create that. So he spent some time, about a year, working on it. I was still using it in the meantime, but it was a little clunky in the beginning, of course. Now we've fine-tuned it, and it's a great presentation tool. And all the clients that use it said that it's the best thing ever. And their closing ratios have gone up almost to 90% because of their presentation style, and the fact that it's super easy for the client to view the quote, and then go ahead and bind a policy and get started. It just really streamlines the process.
Yeah, I bet. And then, so tell me a little bit about because I mean, a lot of companies going out there, and they just go whole hog, right? And we kind of talked about this ahead of time, and they make a lot of promises and they can't live up to them, and I think it really hurts their brand. I think it really hurts their reputation. It really hurts their brand. And and then maybe they get their best friends to get online and say repetitively how amazing their product is and how awesome it is, but then whenever other people get into it, they're like, this isn't quite the bee's knees the way we thought it was going to be, right? And I know y'all have taken a very strategy oriented approach to being able to roll out the various products. So you guys do the whole from the beginning through the quote presentation, right? With the website, and then the web forms, and then you got the feeding into the management system, and the rating systems and so forth. And then you guys also work with commercial and the proposals and so forth. So as you're doing that, tell me a little bit about how you guys have intentionally protected your brand, and really make sure that your conversation with the public is very authentic. Because I think that's one thing I really like about GravityCerts is everybody that I know of says, oh, this is coming, or this is an option, but this is where we're at. So they kind of get the vision of where y'all are going and what y'all are offering, but they know what is really available. I don't ever hear, oh, well, I thought, but it really wasn't. I never hear that about it. So I'm kudos to you guys for being able to roll out in such a thoughtful way.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of how I grew my insurance agency as well. That's just my philosophy, I think, as a person, and my business philosophy. There's a lot of independent agents that say, I want to grow super fast and I want to get all these clients, and then they don't have this team and the support staff to service them. So it's great if you get 100 homeowners quotes or 100 commercial quotes, but what do you do if you don't have the staff to service it? So you grow too quickly, and then your clients suffer and your business suffers. And so with insurance, I always thought, you know what? I'm not going to make as much money as other agents as quickly, and I'm okay with that, because I'm going to have the loyalty from my customers, and I'm going to have a good service and a good product to offer them. So I kind of carried that same philosophy over into our tech business, and I want to be the same way. I was in all of your shoes very recently for 20 years. So I know what you guys want. I know what was important to me. And I know that I can't make all these promises like, come over to us and we're going to solve all these solutions for you. And then you get here and you're like, wait, this doesn't even work. This is frustrating. And I don't want to do that. And so we have intentionally, over the last 3 years, grew the business slower than, we aren't doing funding rounds at this point. We're not, this might be a little controversial, but we're not paying people to promote us. We're not asking, if my friends want to, or our clients, of course, we're asking for referrals, just like you guys do in your business. You're asking for Google referrals, you're asking for client referrals.
System, and they're not just, random people who are like, oh, go check out GravityCerts.
Right.
You have no idea what's really going on.
Right. I don't believe in that is best business practice for us anyways. It does work for other people. But that's not what we wanted to do. So now that we are coming into the end of year 3, we've finally hired some marketing staff. We've hired some other developers. We are wanting to make sure that when we bring on more staff and more clients, that we're able to have, the same things that we want agencies to have. When you guys bring on new staff, whether it's a VA or an agent, you guys all want to have a good onboarding process so your team is successful. We want to do the same thing at GravityCerts, but we need to have all of those systems, and we need to have our FAQs. We have to have all the back end support for our staff, so that when someone calls in and they're like, hey, how do I do this, or how do I do that, that we have the people in place to support that. And we wanted to make sure that that our systems work. I know they worked because I've used them, but when you are mass scaling that to other people, and there's agencies like you're in Texas and people are in Florida, you guys all need slightly different things depending on where you are in the country, and everyone runs their agencies a little bit differently. So you might want something that a different agency in Florida doesn't care about. And like, that's specific to you. So we were like, we need to be able to be creative and try to help them understanding that every agency is slightly different. But on a global scale, like, we want to make sure that our product works for everybody. So we've intentionally slowly built those things out so that we can fix the little kinks and the feedback that we've gotten from our current clients. And then that's also how we've continued to add new products, because they've used us and they said, this is great, but could you add this to it, or could you do that? And we're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let's work on that. So that's kind of where we are in the process. Like I told you before, we are now going to start to be being out there in the public eye more, and we're going to start to do a lot more marketing because we feel like we're ready and we have the systems and procedures in place. But we didn't want to just come out of the gate and promise the world and not be able to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that even after the sale too, you guys have the client center that is an opportunity that, I mean, I know that whenever we talk about the website, we talk about web forms, a lot of people think of new business, and that is, I mean, the web forms can also be service driven, but then you talk about integrations with some of these other raters and management systems. But then after they become a client, you'll have the client center. So tell us a little bit about the client center and what makes that unique in today's market out there.
Sure. Yeah, so the client center is an online client service portal where clients can go 24/7 to you as a business owner, to your agency, and request service requests. They can request COIs. They can request change, like, I sold my car, I want to add this, I want to do that. They can pull policy documents. They can see what their coverages and their policies and when they renew. I mean, it's an awesome system. It currently right now only works with NowCerts as an AMS and Agency Zoom as a CRM. But like I said, we are first quarter, hopefully with HawkSoft, we're working on that integration as well. So we will have we're in talks with AMS 360, but as you can imagine, it takes a while to code all of that out to make the systems talk to each other. So if you don't have one of those two AMSs or the CRM, then you can still use certain features of the client center, but you're not going to be able to pull policy documents, because that's of course attached to your AMS. So if someone needs an auto ID card at 4 o'clock on a Friday and your staff is already gone for the day, or you're gone, they can just log on to your website, again, boosting your SEO, log into their client center, see their policy document, grab that auto ID card or whatever they need to do. So it really frees up your agency and your staff, so you don't have to pay your staff to be sending an email to send an auto ID card, or asking they say, when does my policy renew? What's my deductible on my auto? It's all there for them. They can view it. Not everybody wants to use that, and that's fine. Like, not everyone's technology savvy, and we understand that. But for the agencies that have clients that want to do that, it saves them so much time, because you can get a service request even emailed. So if you don't have NowCerts or HawkSoft, you can still set that up on your website where they can do a service request, and they can say, I want to, whatever they want to do, and it will email directly to your agency, to a central email address, or you could push it into a CRM through Zapier. We'd help you set all of that up. So there are other ways you can work with the client center if you don't have one of those two AMSs.
Okay. All right. And then you mentioned earlier that some people can do a la carte options, because I think that's really important, because a lot of the systems you have to take all of it and then you add to it, or like they have a base and then you add to it. But what y'all are saying is, how does that kind of work? Do you have to have the foundations of GravityCerts with the websites and so forth in order to be able to get into the other pieces that you have? Or can somebody start with just that base maybe and then grow as they choose to? Because I think a lot of people get really scared with the really big picture, right? And so maybe they want to grow as they choose to, where they can kind of bite off a little bit at a time and kind of chew on it. So how are y'all approaching that individualistic type thing that the clients are looking for to be able to match their needs?
It's a really good question. And it's funny because again, I take a lot of what I do for GravityCerts from my independent agency. So, you know, most of us that do PNC, we want to bundle, right? We want home and auto, we want umbrella. We don't want to do monoline. We want to bundle it all together, right? That's the same philosophy that I had with GravityCerts. I'm like, let's just give it all to them and we'll do it as a bundle and it's going to save them money. But like you said, that doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And sometimes people want to split things out. So we have adjusted some of our pricing modules and some of our packages, and we have decided to break things out separately. Monoline. It's probably a la carte, but I'm always going to say monoline because I'm an insurance agent.
Yeah, exactly. It's your background.
And you all know what I'm talking about when I say that. So that's
Absolutely.
important. So there are a few of our systems, yes, that you can purchase if you're like, you know what, I really am good with a lot of the technology that I have, but I'm missing like quote proposals, for instance, or I'm missing a agency intranet site, which is kind of like a back end dashboard that you and your team can use to keep everything organized. It's a fascinating system. That was actually one of the first things I created because I needed to have staff and team members all be able to go to one central location to find carrier information and logins and things like that. So there's quite a few things that you can buy a la carte. And then we have 3 different packages now. So before we had only had 1 or 2, well, we had 2 packages. Now we have a 3rd option, which there's no setup fee, super affordable. It's really for an agency that's just starting out and or that doesn't really need or want all the bells and whistles, but still wants some of the basic functionality of a nice website and some of the tools that we have. And then they can upgrade to the next tier as their team grows. You can always do the same thing. You opposite though, if you get all the bells and whistles and you decide, you know what, this is actually, I'm not using all of this, I don't really want it, you can downgrade as well in your packages. So we try to be pretty flexible. Of course, I want everyone to have all the bells and whistles and I want them to have the best of everything, but it doesn't always, agencies don't always need that. And we recognize that and we understand that we're just here to help you. And so if you just want a little bit of something, we're happy with that. If you want everything and you want a fully custom website, and we can do that as well. So we're trying to be accommodating and understanding that, you know, there's no one size fits all.
Yeah. Well, I don't think one size fits all forever either. So, you know, and I think by not demanding, if you will, for our agencies to be able to bite off more than they can chew, it also allows people to grow in a more way that they can kind of control mentally and emotionally for their team and for themselves, that growth process. Because I think, you know, people just kind of approach business differently, right? And a lot of people can see the Lamborghini down the road, and a lot of people are like, no, right now I want a Honda, right? And I love a Honda, and a Honda's great, and a Honda runs wonderfully, and it's a top tier car, and I love it. But there are days that I want the Lamborghini, and maybe I can just start with a Honda and I'll get to the Lamborghini rather than making me go for the Lamborghini. And then I sit back and go, but really, I can't drive it because all I really need is something to get me from point A to point B. So I love the fact that y'all are working together with agencies and it's scalable. So wherever the agency is, that's where y'all can meet them at.
Yes. And, you know, I'm in a lot of Facebook group chats too, and I see a lot of the same posts that you all see. And there's a lot of agencies that are just like, I don't know how to get started, and I'm thinking about becoming an agency owner, or I just became one. And who do you guys use for your AMS? And who do you use for this? And so because there is so many different pieces and how to put this all together, we want to make sure that I do a lot of like coaching and training too, with just for free, of course, but just to like share my experience, especially with these newbie agency owners or people that maybe came from the captive side that don't know how to run an independent. A lot of these people don't even have an AMS, and they think that they can be successful running their agency with Google Sheets or Excel. And if they want to do that, then that's definitely fine. But sometimes if you don't know what you don't know, right? And so we're just, when we do demos and we talk with people, we're just like, here's a bunch of solutions. What's your main problem? Where do you want to go? How do you want to grow your agency? So we're really kind of helping and giving them some hard knocks, I guess, of like trying to learn the industry, and like, this is what works. And a lot of people love it because they're getting a lot of that direction of how to start and the tools that they need from the beginning. of their agency, or we've had clients that inherited an agency from their parents and it's very old school and they want to turn it into a more modern tech-driven agency. And we're like, well, here's some different solutions. You could start with A, B, and C, then we could move to this and we could do that. So it's almost kind of like we're kind of turning into more like a concierge type service too, where we can help them. Here's all your different issues that you might be aware of or might not be aware of. Here's how some of the solutions. And even if they're not all with us, we're at least giving them the option like, hey, there's this company that you could use. There's, this company you can use, just to help them. They can find the best solution that works for them.
Yeah. So, and I think especially post-COVID, and I mean, I think everybody's tired of the term COVID anyway, but I think post-COVID, and I hate to bring it up again, but the point is that I think people want choices on how to be able to interact and how to be able to work. We want a more virtual work environment. We want information on demand, and we know that it's possible, right? The whole world shut down and the whole world still functioned in the vast majority. And things might have been a little bit slower, but at the same point, things still function. So I think people are more open today to technology than they were 3.5, 4 years ago, in my opinion, because I think people are seeing that it's those agencies that embrace technology and that are at least open to the growth pattern within technology, that's where you're going to maximize your team. You're going to attract better clients, and you're going to be able to just have a happier business just in general, and a smoother running business, and it possibly even a lot of good E&O features that are going to be more documented and be able to give you those options, through surveys and through other things that you can do that you wouldn't normally maybe do if you didn't take that approach. So how are you seeing agents today versus maybe 3-4 years ago when you started some of those conversations? How are they making themselves a little bit more how are they dealing with the technology options?
It's interesting because prior to COVID, when I was running my own agency, I used to tell people, we'd go to different conferences and stuff, and I would tell people what I was doing, and everyone laughed. Well, a lot of people laughed and said, there's no way a client's going to spend 15 minutes on my website filling out a form. They just want to call me, or they just want to come into the office. And I said, well, and this was years ago, but I said, well, people spend all this time shopping on Amazon from their home. They don't have to go into a department store anymore to purchase a product. It's just the insurance industry has done things the same way for so long, and agencies have done the same thing for so long. If you don't embrace the difference in technology and allow your clients to, if they want to get a quote at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, why would you prohibit them from doing that? Yeah. Why would you not want that new submission in your inbox first thing the next morning? Like, if agencies don't change, and if they don't change their mindset on how insurance is done, then they will fall behind in the times. And so I think a lot of agencies want to do that, but they're scared. Like, technology can be
anything new is scary, right? And we get so in our own processes, right? We get so in our own day-to-day that sometimes thinking outside the box, or even thinking about how to do something different from how our rote memorization process might work, is really scary.
It is. And then as agency owners, we're like, well, how's my staff going to handle this? Yeah. Or I know some of my staff isn't going to want to change all this technology. So trust me, I understand how frustrating and frightening it can be to change technology. But like I've said before, you don't have to do it all at one time. You could start with little pieces. As we do extensive training with our agencies, complimentary, once you get up and going with us, and we can train just the personal line staff, we could train just the VAs, we could train just the agents on how to use these different systems and tools. So it makes it easier on the agency owner as well as the principal. They don't have to be the one learning everything and then retraining their team. The whole goal of technology is to make everyone's lives easier. Yeah. Right. Technology can be complicated, but that's why let us take care of that piece for you, and you guys focus on selling insurance. Like, that is, you guys stay in your lane, we stay in our lane. I'm sure that's what you guys tell your customers, which is what I used to tell mine if they profess to know more about insurance than I did. I'm like, well,
I don't need that liability.
Right. Exactly. So, I think agency owners are definitely finally starting to think outside the box and open to have conversations about, okay, what would it look like if we change some of our processes and systems? How would this make it easier on me, my staff, my clients? And then like realistically, what does that look like time-wise? Like, what does that look like financially? And it's really not as scary. It's like a new prospect coming into your agency. To them, switching home, auto, commercial, all of that all at one time might be overwhelming. You handhold them, you walk them through it, you do the quotes, you help them after the fact. We're really doing the same thing. Like, let us help you with your technology pieces. We'll help you piece it all together, and then we'll walk you through how to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. And I've heard tons of really great things. I know one of my good friends, Ashley Mostowski, has been with you for a while, and she's wonderful. And she talks all the time about your intranet and how important that's really been for her agency, as well as the quote videos and the portal for the client portal. And she talks about those all the time. She also talks about just the amount of volume of business that she gets from her website and so forth. So I know you guys are doing a great job. I know that y'all are out there just really knocking it out of the ballpark. So what does the future maybe look like for GravityCerts? Because I know that we dream, right? We're entrepreneurs, right? Like we talked about earlier, there's always more, and technology especially, there's always more, right? There's always something additional. What is the future for GravityCerts at this point? What can people look forward to?
Well, definitely a lot more integrations, because I feel like there are so many different systems out there. And of course, we're never going to integrate with everyone,
Right.
but those other partners that do play well with others that are also have that same philosophy, we have about 15 different integrations in the works right now with different raters, CRM, or AMSs, CRMs, premium finance companies. Like, we have a bunch of different things in the work. And so our goal eventually, is to streamline as many of these different companies as possible, so that no matter which agency, how you run your agency, some or all of your different pieces can work together by having GravityCerts be at the center of that as the hub. And then it connects all the other platforms, whether you need a e-signature program, you need a finance company, you need a rater. If our goal is to be in the center hub of that, whereas your website is your main tool, obviously in addition to your AMS, but for E&O issues, but everything else branching off of that and connecting it so that we really can eliminate duplicate data entry. I think that's a huge thing that our industry, the insurance industry, has not been able to master or conquer. There's no reason for us to have to continue to be putting the same information in over and over again. There has to be a way to streamline that. And so that's really what we're going to try to work on 100% with the different tools that we have.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's going to solve a really big problem right now in the independent agency space. And I love that. I love that. And right now I know that in a hard market too, all the E&S business and all the accord forms going back and forth and all the chaos and mayhem that is all that, I know that it's probably extra as important right now to be able to make sure we have as many integrations as possible, because we're working 10 times harder. We're reshopping more stuff, and we're having to take more things on standard and more, into more of the difficult market, that we have just different types of forms and things like that to be able to fill out. So I do know that you do also have like a PDF filler in there too, to be able to help out with some of those forms. Tell me just a little bit about some of that, because I know we've talked about some of that other technology, but then when we talk about forms, how are you helping people to be able to master that beast of all the forms inside the agency?
Yeah, like you just alluded to, I mean, filling out, I don't care if it's an accord form, a supplemental that a carrier needs, E&S supplementals, it doesn't matter. Your agency has all of that data. You have the client's name, the mailing address, the birth date, the revenue, all of the information you need. So we have a separate service, an endorsement, if you will, that you can add to your policy, that you can add to your website, which it will take the content and the data that your client has already provided to you from your website, and you can import that or map it to any supplemental. So it will just basically take those certain fields and bloop, push it over into whatever PDF you have, supplemental, accord form, and then you can just send that and take that to a carrier. We do have some clients that, like one of our clients specifically works with Markel, and she sells this very specific commercial product with Markel. So Markel sent us the 3-page supplemental, verbatim, exactly what they needed to fill out in their format. So we changed the forms on her website so that she's only asking those very specific questions. So when those questions come in, it automatically pre-fills that Markel Accord app, and then it emails that Markel Accord app directly to the underwriter.
Really? She never even touches it? She
never has to touch it. So we can set up your agency, and that's for, she does just niche trucking, sort of type of business.
Very unique, if you will, because a lot of people,
yes,
even if they do specialize, they still do other things. A lot of people don't niche into such a degree that that's all they do. So make sure everybody out there hears that. So
yeah, but if you did, let's say you specialize in weddings, or you specialize in a certain type of policy, we can put that on your website. So you still have your home and auto and umbrella, and those might be more generic type questions and forms. But then if you do special niche markets, we can make a custom form for that then can pre-fill a supplemental. Or if you say, I want this specific form to get emailed to this specific carrier, we can do that as well. And then your agency gets a copy as well for E&O.
Okay.
So we're really trying to streamline you not having to enter, or your staff not having to enter that same information. Pay your staff to help with claims, pay your staff to, help go over annual reviews or coverage questions, but let technology solve the piece that the human touch doesn't need to be involved in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're not trying to take the human touch out of it. And I think a lot of people think of technology and they're like, oh, well, if I digitalize my agency too much, then I'm losing that relationship basis, which we all know is what sets us apart in the insurance space, is a relationship basis.
Yeah.
But you're really strengthening that relationship if you think about it, because you're able to spend more time now talking with your clients and spending time with them on what is necessary, and leaving the automation and the tech piece to us, and then you guys can spend your time where it's needed most, not filling out a VIN number 17 times.
Yes, exactly. And all the copy and paste and all that other stuff.
Copy and paste, yes. We don't need it. This is not the 90s. We don't need to be copying and pasting anymore. Things can, through an API, can get pushed in, pulled where it needs to go.
Yeah.
When you don't have to do anything. So that is really what we're trying to help agencies realize, is that PDF mapper has been a game changer. So people can use that any way they want. They would just need to schedule a demo with us so we could find out what they are doing in their agency, and then we would be able to advise them that we could add it to all the forms, some of the forms, and teach them how to use it, and then also direct, where do you want these forms to go? Do you want them to go directly to an underwriter to get the quote started? Do you want it to go into a rater? Do you want it to get emailed to your staff? So those are some of the processes, and some agencies don't have those processes in place, or they don't really know what they would like to do. So sometimes it's nice just to kind of bounce those ideas off somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that as an independent, as the name is an independent, right? We don't have people telling us what to do, right? And so I think sometimes we don't know what we can do. We don't know what we can do. We don't know what it's going to take to achieve that. It might feel really, really big, but when we can sit down and have that conversation with another person, maybe another agency owner that's been through it, or somebody like you guys that can walk me through it and be able to help hold my hand and be able to say, okay, we're going to phase this, right? So this is going to be a year process, but maybe we're going to work on this quarter, and then next quarter, we're going to work on this, and then the next quarter, we're going to work on that. I think helping somebody to be able to pace that out kind of at a and talk it through, and maybe they can make those choices on their own pace as well. And then I love the a la carte, the model line features that y'all have as well, because I think it puts the agent in charge of their technology and of how they want to be able to present themselves directly to their client. And kudos to you guys for making it so flexible. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying, and we know that that's important to agencies, to take that control. Again, it's their agency. We just want to help them to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Elizabeth, if people want to reach out to y'all, reach out to GravityCerts, learn about it, maybe do a demo, right? Because I know
Mhm.
y'all will walk people through. How can they reach out to you so that way they can connect with y'all?
Well, I am on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. So if you guys want to follow me specifically, I'd love to do that. Obviously, GravityCerts as well on social media. And then if you just go to our website, gravitycerts.com, there's a book a demo link right there, or you could call us. Phone numbers down at the bottom as well. So, and I'm happy just to answer any questions if people don't necessarily want to book a demo, but they just want to have some generic questions about some processes or like what we're doing. I'm happy to help with that as well.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. This has been wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well, everybody, this has been another awesome and amazing episode of the Power Women in Insurance podcast. Thank you for joining me. My name is Teresa Kitchens, your host. Today, we've had Elizabeth Culley, and every single Wednesday, we do talk to another wonderful and amazing woman in the insurance space. And we are talking about things to help you build your career, build your agency, and build your influence with your clients, and build the career that you really, truly, honestly want. And so join us every single Wednesday. We're on Apple iTunes, we're on Google Podcasts, and anywhere that you stream your favorite podcasts. So everybody, we'll talk to you next week.